Interesting you talk about keyword research because that's going to give you information on obviously how many people are searching for a specific term. But is it a case of where just because people aren't searching for that term now, you should not put in unique or brand new keywords or search terms? Is that how does that work? I'd like to get my brain around that.
Yeah, with keyword research, it's really, and this is oriented towards the search campaigns that would run on Google. To some extent, the shopping campaigns as well, although you don't actually get to pick keywords for those campaigns. It's more about how you write your product data in a way that Google will match that to the keywords you want them to match to. But at the end of the day, it's thinking about how do people search for my product or my service that I'm selling? And also, what are indicators of things that people are searching that might say they need my product or service? So there are a couple of, there's different categories in the funnel, obviously. Going to that bookkeeper example, someone looking bookkeeper near me, that's a very obvious term. We probably want to show up for it. We know what they're looking for, most likely.
Welcome to another episode of From Startup to Wunderbrand with Nicholas Kuhne.
Today, we've got John Horn, who's the CEO of StubGroup, a digital advertising agency and premier Google partner, ranked by Google in the top 1% of all Google partners worldwide for performance and customer care. StubGroup has generated over $500 million in revenue for their clients across many different verticals, including B2B, B2C, retail, local stores, and professional services. They helped over 2,000 clients across 15,000 campaigns with their ad campaigns and suspension issues. So suspension issues we're not going to touch on, but that's obviously something a lot of folks go through. John himself has taught digital advertising to over 100,000 students via online courses, and the videos he's produced have received millions of views. So I think I can get some lessons from you probably on getting my numbers up on this podcast. John, welcome.
Nicholas, thank you so much for having me.
So John, I asked you a little bit earlier, why are you doing podcasts? And I think this is quite a useful question. So you do Google ad campaigns. And obviously, if you want to be seen on the internet, you need to do Google ads. But why did you decide that podcasts are the right thing to do? I mean, this is visual and audio, and it's not a Google ad. Why would somebody who does Google ads want to go onto a podcast?
Great question. So the type of client that we're looking for at StubGroup is someone who's a business owner, a marketing manager who's looking to figure out how to make their company successful. And we know they spend their time listening to podcasts. I know as a CEO myself, I listen to podcasts all the time and find opportunities, new information, insights, etc. So I want to hopefully share some helpful information to those who are listening. And then also say, hey, we know what we're talking about. And so, if you're listening and you ever need help, StubGroup is the name that comes to mind.
Awesome. Well, as I mentioned earlier, it's part of the customer journey, and each one of these marketing activities sort of fits neatly into one of those boxes. So for those of you who want to know why folks are coming on the show, that's why it's part of the customer journey. Now, I want to talk a little bit today about a growth strategy for brands through audience testing with Google Ads. So this is something that I haven't really done before on the show. So maybe let's talk a little bit through what is audience testing for Google Ads.
Yeah, so audience testing, let's kind of briefly describe it. So when you run campaigns on Google, there's different types of campaigns you can run. You can run search campaigns, which show text ads to people who are searching on Google. You can run shopping campaigns that have the product listing ads that show up at the top of the page. You can also run ads on YouTube. You can run ads on Google's display network that is image ads across many different websites. So there's a lot of options. But throughout all of that, Google obviously has access to a tremendous amount of data about its audience, about people who are using YouTube, who are searching on Google, who are navigating Gmail, all the various Google properties. And so the idea with audience testing in Google is taking advantage of that information that Google is constantly capturing about all of us as we spend time on the internet, and leveraging as best as we can to say, okay, this is the type of person or the type of behavior that I want to target. So, one, let's say real life example. Let's say that you are running search campaigns. So people just typing something into Google, you want to show your ads to those people. Let's say that you have a watch store, you're selling watches. And let's say you are a luxury watch store. you only want to show up to people who are searching related to luxury watches, not somebody looking to buy, a $20 watch from Amazon or something like that. And so a strategy you could try is you could look for in-market audiences is one thing that Google calls these audiences. And so this is Google saying, hey, we think these people are searching for, luxury goods, for example. We go down and find, all right, where's our luxury good audience? And we layer that on to our campaign. So we're only targeting people who, A, are searching for, watch store near me, for example. And then B, they also have to be in this audience of people that Google thinks are looking for luxury products. And that allows us to direct our ad dollars towards hopefully the right audience and spend less money on those, $20 watch shoppers that are just never going to be relevant to our brand.
So in terms of your business, StubGroup, if I as a client come to you, you're not going to be able to solve all of my problems. I've got to come to you with a certain amount of information beforehand. Obviously, the product's got to be good. It's got to be available. If the ideal client comes to you, what are they bringing you before you start on a campaign like this?
So the absolute ideal client coming to us will already have good systems and processes in place for making sales. If they're an e-commerce business, they already, have products people like, they're converting through their website, they've figured out the process to at least a certain extent. If they're a lead generation company, they have a sales process in place. When someone calls them, they're answering that phone. They have a good process to turn that into a customer. So that's the ideal scenario, because then we can bring advertising in as fuel for that fire and say, all right, what you need is leads in the door or visits to the website from people who are looking for the products you sell. And we can do that. We can go out and find that relevant traffic, get those leads into the funnel, get those people to the website to start converting. Now, that said, we also work with lots of businesses who don't have that, startups, new businesses who they haven't had the opportunity to test because they're, literally this is day one and they need to use advertising as a way to get the traffic into their funnel to figure those things out. And so we can work well with those clients as well, as long as they have the right mindset of, we as the client have to do our part as well. Advertising is not a magic bullet. We can get the right people to your site, but if you have, offers that aren't compelling, if your pricing is twice what the average in the market is, and there's not some reason why people should pay you more because of a better experience or whatever, there's only so much we can do on the advertising side to make up for that. So ultimately, whatever state someone is when they come to us as a client, it has to be a partnership, like you mentioned. Each of us bringing the best of our abilities to the table to get the outcome that we're looking for.
Have you ever successfully failed with a client? And when I say successfully failed, I'm thinking of a client who spent money and too many leads, too much traffic, and they just haven't been ready for it. Has that ever happened?
Absolutely. We have a client last week, one of my team members came in and said, hey, we're pausing the campaigns for a while for this client because he's got more leads than he knows what to do with. And, hopefully in a week or two, he'll be relaunching, but he just doesn't have the capacity right now to take those leads. So that is my favorite story. That's what I want to happen for every single client is, all right, you've got too many good things going on. And then obviously we want to help them get better processes in place so they can handle the volume and keep scaling. But yeah, no, I love failing in that way.
It's one of the challenges I've seen with some businesses, and I've actually had that myself, where I've had too many leads and our business was too small, or that particular part of the business in terms of dealing with, okay, I've got the lead and the whole process from speaking to the client, giving them a proposal, all of those processes have to be in order. So I suppose what we want to tell customers is that you've got to have your ducks in a row before you go into a campaign like this. You're obviously hoping that this Google Ads campaign is going to work. So you've got to plan for success and obviously also plan for failure.
Absolutely. And two, in a situation like that, there's often things we can do from an advertising perspective to help, which is, hey, okay, you're drowning in leads. Let's talk about the different categories of those leads. There's probably a bunch of those leads that are not great leads for you, or they're not the best use of your time. So let's talk about on the advertising side, how can we maybe hone in the advertising, make the lead process a little more difficult, a little more, more gateways in there so that moving forward, we're focused on sending you the highest possible quality leads and you're focusing your time on that.
Yeah, that's super smart. That's the right way to do it as opposed to pausing the campaign. I think getting better quality leads. Um, so we're talking about leads, and one of the questions I've got here is how to generate more leads, sales, and revenue effectively for your startup, particularly using Google Ads. Now, I understand that Google has some sort of entry-level campaigns or entry-level offers for startups and things like that. Do you take advantage of that as a Google partner?
Yeah, so they'll give out some free ad credits, for example, for brand new businesses. You might get $500 or maybe even $1,000 in ad credit, depending on what promotion's going on. And we'll definitely help clients get that. I will say that we try not to put too much emphasis on that because if you're just starting to grab a free $500, that's not the right mindset to have. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some testing. So that's just a nice little bonus or bit of gravy at the beginning. But I'd say the biggest thing that we probably have conversations wise with startups, people who have no data, who are just brand new to things, is trying to help them figure out the best niche to fit them into from an advertising perspective. Often they'll be like, oh, we can work with any type of business. We can do all these 10 different services. And we're like, well, we don't know yet which of those services is actually going to work best for you. And you don't have the budget to go out and test advertising all 10 services at once, because some of them aren't going to work and you don't have that much runway. And so it's a conversation of, all right, let's figure out what is the lowest hanging fruit. If you have any experience, let's say you're starting a bookkeeping company and you've done a little bit of bookkeeping so far. Okay, well, what clients have you worked with? Cool, you've worked with a couple of real estate investors. Interesting. Let's get some testimonials from those and let's niche down and not just be like, hey, bookkeeper for all your needs, but let's go after real estate investors and say, we're the experts in the real estate space as your bookkeeper, and create landing pages and content around that. So it's really about, what is that unique selling value or unique value proposition at the beginning of things? How can we get some early wins and then help those startups scale from there?
So I can see you've dealt with a lot of customers because I'm sure that's an issue you get a lot. Let's just do everything. And that must be sometimes perhaps a bit frustrating, or it could be another line of business for you in terms of the actual startup consulting or consulting to businesses saying, look, these Google ads, done research, seen tons of data. You've got to really be so niche. How niche do you have to be in Google to actually win, since we're talking about following your USP and looking at a niche? Does it make sense going super, super niche, or how broad can you keep it if you in sort of a generic industry where everyone's selling everything?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. There's tremendous opportunity with Google, but also can be very expensive and competitive. So it's about trying to find that right balance, obviously, which is if you go too niche and there aren't enough people looking for what you're niching down to, that doesn't help you at all. Let's say you're that bookkeeper going after real estate investors. If you're like, hey, I'm going after people in a 5-mile range who are real estate investors who want bookkeeping, you're not going to have, enough traffic to run a business off of that. That's just too niched down. But if you are, geography is one way that you can niche, as an example. So even if you're a company that could service a wide geographic area, you could still say, okay, we're going to niche and really focus just in this one area and try and dominate this market rather than having just a little bit of a presence across all these markets. It's hard to answer in a general way because it is so nuanced to every business, but it's a conversation we have with doing keyword research to see how many people are searching for this type of thing. Is there enough traffic for this niche to warrant going after it? Or do you need to go a bit broader to get enough traffic to get business?
Interesting you talk about keyword research, because that's going to give you information on obviously how many people are searching for a specific term. But is it a case of where just because people aren't searching for that term now, you should not put in unique or brand new keywords or search terms? Is that how does that work? I'd like to get my brain around that.
Yeah, with keyword research, it's really, and this is oriented towards the search campaigns that would run on Google. To some extent, the shopping campaigns as well, although you don't actually get to pick keywords for those campaigns. It's more about how you write your product data in a way that Google will match that to the keywords you want them to match to. But at the end of the day, it's thinking about how do people search for my product or my service that I'm selling? And also, what are indicators of things that people are searching that might say they need my product or service. So there are a couple of, there's different categories in the funnel, obviously. Going to that bookkeeper example, someone looking bookkeeper near me, that's a very obvious term. We probably want to show up for it. We know what they're looking for, most likely.
And that's where we're looking at intent, search intent.
Exactly. Yep. Then you might have things like people trying to solve problems through their searches. So, let's say, how do I do X, Y, and Z function in QuickBooks? If you're like, oh, that means that they need my help. Maybe they haven't even thought about it yet or gotten to that place. But if I were to say, here's how to do it, and oh, by the way, tired of spending all your time in QuickBooks, I can do this for you. It's obviously higher funnel traffic, but it's also probably going to be much cheaper traffic than targeting bookkeeper near me because everyone's going after that because it's the obvious thing. And so keyword research is about figuring out the right balance between the obvious stuff that's kind of more expensive to go after, the less obvious stuff that might be not as expensive to go after, but is not going to have as high a conversion rate because it is higher in the funnel. And just, again, that word balance I like to use, just figuring out the right balance and testing and iterating on that over time.
So you speak about certain phrases in terms being cheaper than others. And I think that's quite interesting for people who are maybe on a budget or can't get on the front page for bookkeeping, for example. So going into sort of those more niche areas or slightly different search terms, I think that's a great strategy. And I'm sure that you've got some good results from companies who are struggling in a very tough environment to get their product or their ad in front of somebody.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's always a fun challenge to say, okay, well, how are we going to bootstrap this? If company, let's say we're a lawyer, we got a $5,000 a month budget, and we're going after people spending $1 million per month. We're never going to outbid them, out them. So how can we find things on the edges where we can make our ads more relevant and compelling and our landing pages more relevant and compelling than the guys who are just painting with a wide brush? We can grab those chunks of traffic and say, oh, this particular type of case, we're really good at this. Our ads are more relevant. Great. We're going to see a good conversion rate and then go from there. So lots of problem solving is kind of the name of the game in Google Ads campaigns.
I think that's going to be a podcast discussion just by itself, how to, beat those folks who are outspending you on Google Ads. I think there might be something quite interesting in there. You've been at StubGroup for over a decade now, and you've gone through a variety of roles. Maybe talk to me about your process and how you've stayed excited and motivated and what your sort of vision is for StubGroup now that you are at the helm.
Absolutely. Yes, like you said, I started here over a decade ago. I was employee number one, brought in with the two founders of the company. So we kind of started. I came on, shortly after they started things, and we really bootstrapped the company. Figured out, okay, how do we do what we're doing, and how do we do that well for our clients, and then how do we get our own clients and grow? And so it's been a fun journey over that decade plus. And I started out doing pretty much everything, running campaigns, talking with clients, fill in the blank, doing it all. And then grew over time, was able to use that kind of technical understanding as I got better at running campaigns to be able to say, okay, let's hire the right people to come on to our team. Let's train them, make sure we're maintaining a high standard of excellence and grow things from there. And eventually that led to me, taking over the CEO role about 5 years ago. I think it is. Yeah, about 5 years ago. And in terms of vision and where we're at, where we're going, we're very focused on the paid advertising space. There's a lot you can do in the marketing world. It's always been tempting to branch off in different directions. But by and large, we've stayed very focused on paid media, so paid search, paid social, things like Google, Facebook, Instagram, etc. And ultimately connecting our clients with customers online, finding the new customers. And that is how I describe kind of our company goal. It's not just Google ads. It's not just Facebook ads, etc. It's connecting businesses, customers, finding the new customers. And so I know that the platforms to use are going to change over time. Obviously, Google, Meta, TikTok, Amazon, everything is constantly changing, evolving, some come, some go. But there's always going to be the need for businesses to find new customers. And so as long as we have that as our objectives and are staying up with those changes and how digital advertising strategy works and how you make those connections, then I think we have a very long and hopefully helpful future to the clients that we're working with.
Well, I like that you've personalized it a little bit more. So it's not just about Google and Google Ads, but it's getting you right in front of your customer. I love that. The last thing before we go is you talk about getting the right staff on board. Do you get folks who are already ready to hustle, trained up perfectly on Google Ads, or do you have a training program? How do you get people to the level that you want them to be? I see, obviously, on your own YouTube channel, your training channel, millions of views. Do you use that material? Has that helped your internal processes in terms of training up staff to get to a high level?
Yeah, fantastic question. So we've tried different models over the years. We've tried hiring people with no experience and training them from the ground up. We've tried hiring people with more experience. And at this point, we're really focused on people who already have good experience and a good foundation when they come on board, and then building into that and helping to fill in any gaps in their understanding, helping to improve that foundation, and then learning together, because what worked yesterday in Google isn't necessarily going to work today. So it's not about, hey, here's the concrete 10 things you need to know, and then you're an amazing Google Ads specialist. It's the mentality and the ability to think creatively, to learn, both by looking at the training materials we provide, as well as just self-learning, testing things out in accounts, and then sharing that with other team members. We're all constantly learning together and figuring out new things from each other. So I want a good foundation of understanding things and having proven that interested in this world by having already been working in this world for a while. And then again, that mentality. Do they have that eagerness to learn, that excitement to work with clients, the creativity to think outside of the box on behalf of clients? And then that's what I'm looking for as a long-term team member here.
Awesome. The last thing before we go is when you got into the 1% of premier Google partners, how did that feel?
Yeah, it feels awesome. I mean, at the end of the day, Google has this kind of partner program that is, it's hopefully it's a helpful signal to advertisers as to who is legitimate to work with to manage your advertising. It means that they, are hitting different benchmarks and doing different things, which is awesome. To be honest, there's a lot of Google partners out there, even a lot of Google Premier partners. And so while I love having that distinction from Google, what makes me much happier is the actual results that we drive for our clients and the reviews we get from our clients online. So honestly, I'm much happier with our 160 plus 5-star reviews than I am with the Premier partner status, although I'm grateful for it.
You would be a fantastic politician. That was a perfect answer. Good job. Well, John, it's been fantastic chatting to you. Where can I send folks to find out some more information from you? And if they want, I see there's, if you've got a free guide, so maybe talk to us about that, and I'll put the link in the description.
Absolutely. So check out stubgroup.com/free on our website. We've got a couple of different, just free helpful guides, and we're adding new information to that too all the time. And then also our YouTube channel, like you mentioned, lots of people use our information for their own advertising campaigns, and it's all free. So just search StubGroup on YouTube, and hopefully you'll find some content that's helpful for you.
Awesome. I'll definitely share that around. John, thanks for your time, and happy Googling.
Thank you, Nicholas. Fantastic chatting with you.